Heavenly Stories.
The sun was setting over the rugged hills of Israel, painting the sky with shades of gold and crimson. A restless silence filled the land, a silence broken only by the cries of those who lived in fear. For 20 long years, the Israelites had suffered under the iron fist of King Jabin of Canaan and his ruthless commander, Sisera. Chariots of iron thundered across the valleys, and the people trembled, their spirits crushed beneath the weight of oppression. But in the midst of despair, there rose a figure unlike any other, a woman whose voice carried the weight of truth and whose presence brought hope where none remained. Her name was Deborah. She was no ordinary woman. She was a prophetess, chosen by God, and the only female judge Israel had ever known. Under the shade of the palm of Deborah, people gathered from every tribe, seeking her wisdom and her judgments. Her eyes, steady and fearless, saw beyond disputes and quarrels. They saw the heart of the nation, broken and longing for deliverance. Deborah listened not only to the voices of her people but to the voice of God Himself. And in a time when courage was scarce and faith was fragile, she stood tall, a beacon of leadership, wisdom, and unshakable faith. But the story of Deborah is not just ancient history. It is a story of courage in the face of overwhelming odds. It is a story that challenges us today. What does it mean to lead with wisdom? What does it mean to stand when others are too afraid to rise? As the fires of oppression burned hotter, Deborah heard the call of heaven. The time for deliverance had come. And God had chosen her to ignite the spark. Summoning Barak, the warrior from the tribe of Naphtali, Deborah spoke with authority. "The Lord commands you, take 10,000 men and go to Mount Tabor. There, He will deliver Sisera into your hands." Barak's eyes widened. Facing Sisera's iron chariots seemed like certain death. The Canaanite army was powerful, merciless, and undefeated. Fear gripped him, and his answer revealed his trembling heart. "If you go with me, I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go." And here, Deborah's strength shone even brighter. She did not shrink back. She did not hesitate. She looked at him and declared, "I will surely go with you. But know this, the honor will not be yours. For the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." With those words, history began to turn. A woman was about to reshape the destiny of a nation. This was not just a battle of swords and chariots. It was a battle of faith, of courage, of leadership. And Deborah was ready to lead. But the question lingered in the air: could one woman's wisdom and bravery ignite a revolution strong enough to break the chains of oppression? The answer was about to unfold. The air was thick with tension on the morning that Barak and his army gathered at Mount Tabor. Thousands of soldiers stood ready, their armor glinting under the rising sun. Yet beneath the surface of readiness, a quiet unease rippled through the ranks. They faced an enemy unlike any other, a force that had ruled over them with terror for decades. The iron chariots of Sisera were legendary, their unstoppable might whispered in fearful tones throughout the villages of Israel. And yet, standing among them, was Deborah. Her presence was calm, almost serene, but there was a fire in her eyes that commanded attention. She did not raise her hand to rally the troops. She did not shout orders from a distance. Instead, she spoke words that carried far more power than the clash of weapons, words of faith, courage, and unshakable trust in the Lord. "Do not be afraid," she told Barak and the soldiers. "Go, for the Lord will deliver Sisera into your hands. Trust in Him, and no enemy shall prevail." Barak's heart still wavered. He had been a warrior, but even the bravest men falter when fear threatens to choke their courage. Yet Deborah's calm certainty was contagious. Slowly, as if caught in a spell of unwavering faith, the men began to believe that victory was possible. Meanwhile, Sisera's army approached. The Canaanite commander, arrogant and confident, believed victory was inevitable. His chariots rumbled across the plains, the earth shaking beneath their iron wheels. He had no idea that the God of Israel had already decreed the outcome. Then Deborah spoke again, a quiet but powerful command. Go. The Lord is with you. Fear not, for he fights before you. With that, Barak and his army descended the mountain, the ground echoing with the marching of determined feet. The battle that would decide the fate of Israel had begun. But the struggle was more than physical. Every clash of swords, every screech of a chariot wheel, was a test of faith. Soldiers faltered, hearts pounded, and chaos threatened to overwhelm. And yet Deborah stood firm, a pillar of divine guidance. She did not swing a sword, she did not charge into battle, but her presence was felt on every battlefield, a reminder that leadership is not only action, but vision, courage, and faith that inspires others to rise. And then it happened, the miracle that would echo through generations. God intervened. A sudden storm turned the dry riverbeds into torrents, bogging down Sisera's chariots. What had seemed an invincible army was now trapped, vulnerable, and defeated by a force far greater than iron and flesh. Barak's men seized the moment, striking with precision and courage that had been ignited by Deborah's leadership. The Canaanites fell, one by one, until the battlefield was silent, save for the cries of the defeated and the cheers of Israel's victorious army. But the story does not end on the battlefield. Victory often demands justice, cunning, and resolve, and Deborah's wisdom would soon shine in ways that no soldier could. For the next chapter would reveal that courage sometimes requires facing the enemy not with weapons alone, but with ingenuity and faith. And so, as the dust settled and the cries faded, a new chapter in Israel's history began, one where a woman's courage, wisdom, and faith reshaped the destiny of a nation. The question now loomed, who would bring the final justice to Sisera, and how would Deborah's leadership guide Israel into a future free from fear? The battlefield was quiet now, but the air was thick with tension. Israel had won, but the final act of courage had yet to be written. Sisera, the mighty commander whose iron chariots had terrorized the land for decades, was nowhere to be seen. The soldiers celebrated, yet a shadow of unease lingered. The war was not yet fully ended, justice still needed a hand, and destiny required courage. Deborah, standing tall beneath the palm, remained calm. Victory in battle was only part of the story. Leadership, she knew, demanded wisdom, foresight, and a courage that extended beyond swords. Her eyes scanned the horizon, her mind already moving toward the next step. God's plan was unfolding, and she understood that the moment of triumph was also the moment of reckoning. Meanwhile, Sisera fled the battlefield, abandoning his chariot, running desperately across the rugged hills, seeking refuge from the very army he had once dominated. His confidence was shattered, fear gripped him like a vice. The great warrior, whose name had inspired terror for years, was now a fugitive, a man brought low not just by arms, but by divine justice and the unshakable courage of a woman leading a nation. As night fell, Sisera found himself at the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. Her home was quiet, seemingly unremarkable, yet within its walls, courage and cunning awaited. Jael welcomed Sisera, offering hospitality, water, and rest. To him, she was a sanctuary, to the story of Israel, she was about to become an instrument of deliverance. Deborah's wisdom had foreseen this. She knew that the fate of Israel required more than the army's strength, it required courage in unexpected places. She understood that God often uses the least expected instruments to bring justice. The oppressed were not just saved by swords, they were saved by bravery, ingenuity, and the willingness to act when the moment demanded it. Sisera, exhausted and unguarded, slept, trusting the sanctuary he had found. But Jael acted. With a quiet determination, she took a tent peg and a hammer, approaching the sleeping enemy with calm, unwavering resolve. Her hands were steady, her purpose was clear. In a single decisive act, she fulfilled the prophecy that Deborah had spoken, the enemy would fall not by the hand of Barak alone, but through the courage of women guided by God. When Barak arrived in pursuit, Jael revealed the truth. Sisera lay defeated, not through brute force alone, but through courage, wisdom, and faith, qualities that Deborah had exemplified throughout her leadership. The victory was complete. Israel had been freed, not just from a military oppressor, but from the fear that had paralyzed a nation for decades. Deborah's leadership, now fully realized, was a testament to the power of faith, wisdom, and courage. She had inspired an army, guided the strategy of battle, and foreseen the instruments of justice in ways that no ordinary judge could. Her story was a lesson for all generations. True leadership is not measured only by victories on the battlefield, but by the ability to see the path where others see only darkness, to inspire courage where fear reigns, and to act with wisdom when the stakes are highest. The people of Israel sang songs of praise, their hearts lifted by freedom and hope. Yet Deborah remained humble, knowing that the real victory was not her own, it was the deliverance of her people, the restoration of justice, and the affirmation that courage and wisdom can reshape destiny. The question lingered in the hearts of all who witnessed these events: how does one cultivate such courage, such wisdom, such vision? Deborah's story was far from over. Her legacy would continue to teach Israel, and the world, that leadership is not about power, but about faith, integrity, and the bravery to act when it matters most. The land of Israel breathed a sigh of relief. The clamor of war had faded, leaving behind the quiet of a people who were learning to trust in freedom again. Yet for Deborah, the battle had never been just about swords or chariots, it had been about the soul of a nation. And now, her true challenge was to guide her people in the aftermath, to strengthen their hearts so that fear would never again dominate their lives. Under the palm of Deborah, she listened to disputes, settled arguments, and offered counsel. Her voice, calm and resonant, reminded the Israelites that courage and wisdom were not just for battles, but for every choice, every moment, every act of life. People came from all corners, not only to seek justice but to witness a leader whose vision went beyond herself. Deborah's influence extended far beyond judgment. She nurtured unity among the tribes, reminding them that Israel's strength lay not in a single tribe, nor in a single army, but in their faith and in their commitment to one another. She was a living reminder that leadership is measured not by fear imposed, but by trust earned, and courage inspired. Barak, too, felt the weight of her wisdom. Though he had led men into battle, it was Deborah's guidance that had given him the confidence to act. He recognized that true leaders are those who inspire others to rise beyond their limitations. He often remarked privately that he could never have faced Sisera without her unwavering presence. But Deborah's story carried an even greater message, one that would ripple through generations. She proved that leadership is not confined to men, nor defined by tradition. Faith, wisdom, and courage, these are qualities that can reside in anyone called to serve. And in Deborah, Israel saw that divine purpose could be fulfilled in ways that challenged expectation, redefined norms, and illuminated paths others dared not tread. Even the songs of victory told her story. The prophetess Jael, the brave woman who had delivered Sisera into justice, was praised in Deborah's songs. They celebrated courage in all its forms, on the battlefield, in the home, and in the hearts of those who dared to act when destiny demanded it. Through these songs, Deborah ensured that the lesson of bravery, wisdom, and faith would never be forgotten. Yet despite the triumphs, Deborah remained humble. She knew that her authority came not from herself, but from God, who had guided her every step. She encouraged others to seek strength beyond themselves, to trust in the unseen, and to act when fear whispered for them to hesitate. Her leadership was both a shield and a torch, protecting the weak and lighting the way forward. As the sun set over the hills, Deborah stood once more beneath her palm. The land was quiet, yet alive with hope. Children played without fear, traders returned to their villages, and the elders spoke of a future where Israel could thrive in peace. It was a testament to what courage, wisdom, and faith could accomplish when wielded with integrity and love. The story of Deborah was now etched not only in history but in the hearts of her people. She had transformed Israel from a land of fear into a land of vision. And though her battles were over, the lessons of her leadership were timeless. True strength lies in faith, true courage lies in conviction, and true leadership lies in inspiring others to rise when the world seems against them. But the tale was not yet fully complete. There remained one final truth to uncover: how Deborah's legacy would shape the hearts of future generations, proving that one person's courage can ignite an eternal flame of hope and leadership. The victory over Sisera had changed Israel forever. But Deborah knew that true leadership was not measured solely by triumph in battle, it was measured by the lasting strength and faith of a people. Her role as judge and prophetess now extended beyond strategy and counsel. She became the living example of courage, wisdom, and hope, inspiring not just soldiers or tribes, but hearts across the nation. Every day, people came to her beneath the palm of Deborah. They sought guidance, reassurance, and vision for their families and their future. She listened with patience, weighing each concern, resolving disputes with fairness, and reminding all who came that their strength lay not in fear, but in unity and trust in God. Her presence was both steady and electrifying, an anchor in turbulent times, and a spark that ignited courage in others. Deborah's legacy was cemented not only through the songs sung in Israel but through the actions of those she inspired. Barak became a leader strengthened by faith, confident in decisions guided by wisdom rather than impulse. Jael's courage became a story told and retold, a reminder that bravery often appears in unexpected forms. And the people, once paralyzed by fear, now walked with heads held high, learning that leadership is not the privilege of a few but the responsibility of all who dare to act with conviction. Even decades later, the land remembered Deborah's influence. The palm where she judged, spoke, and guided became a symbol of hope. Parents would tell their children the story of the woman who had led a nation, who had shown that true power comes from wisdom, faith, and the courage to stand when others tremble. Her story transcended time, reminding every generation that greatness is not about position or recognition, it is about vision, action, and the bravery to inspire others to rise. Yet perhaps the most profound lesson of all was this: leadership is not about the absence of fear, but about moving forward despite it. Deborah's courage was not born of arrogance or ambition, it was born of faith and an unwavering commitment to the greater good. She taught Israel that facing danger, confronting injustice, and trusting in a higher purpose are the true marks of a leader. Her story reminds us that influence is more than authority, it is the ability to transform lives through wisdom, integrity, and compassion. One voice, grounded in faith and courage, can ignite movements, inspire armies, and reshape the destiny of an entire nation. Deborah's story is proof that even in the darkest moments, a single person guided by conviction and purpose can lead others to freedom, hope, and victory. And so, the legacy of Deborah lived on, not just in history books, but in the hearts of all who dare to lead with courage. She became more than a judge, she became a symbol, a legend, a guiding light. Her story calls to us today, across centuries: stand brave. Speak wise. Lead with faith. Inspire others to rise. The world needs your courage. As the sun set over Israel, the palm cast a long shadow, a shadow that stretched far beyond her lifetime, reminding all who gazed upon it that true leadership is eternal. The land of Israel had been transformed. Once paralyzed by fear, now it pulsed with life, hope, and renewed faith. The battles had ended, the enemies defeated, yet the most enduring triumph was not of swords or armies, it was the triumph of courage, wisdom, and visionary leadership. Deborah had shown her people, and the generations that would follow, what it truly means to lead. Even as the years passed, her presence lingered in every corner of Israel. The palm of Deborah became more than a meeting place, it became a symbol. Travelers from distant villages would pause there, feeling the weight of history, sensing the courage and faith that had once flowed through its shade. Songs and stories carried her legacy across time, celebrating a woman who dared to rise, who dared to guide, and who dared to trust in God when others hesitated. Deborah's story teaches us that leadership is never about authority alone. It is about vision, integrity, and the courage to act when fear threatens to paralyze. Her life reminds us that true power is measured not in domination, but in the ability to inspire others to rise beyond their limitations, to act for the greater good, and to embrace responsibility with both humility and boldness. In today's world, her legacy resonates even more. We see it in leaders who choose wisdom over ego, in those who act with moral clarity when injustice looms, and in individuals who dare to make a difference despite the odds. Deborah's life is a timeless mirror, reflecting the reality that courage can change destinies, and one voice guided by faith can lead many. Barak's army, the tribes of Israel, even ordinary citizens, they all had their roles, but Deborah reminded them that inspiration can come from the most unexpected places. A woman's vision, a quiet voice of courage, a steadfast commitment to justice, these forces can move mountains, redirect the course of history, and ignite hope in hearts long weighed down by fear. And then there is the lesson of legacy. True leadership is not fleeting. It lives on in those who are touched, in communities transformed, and in the courage passed from one generation to the next. Deborah's story is more than ancient history. It is a blueprint for anyone who dares to lead with wisdom, act with courage, and inspire with faith. As the sun set for the final time over Israel in Deborah's era, the nation she guided stood stronger, united, and free. The shadow of the palm stretched long, a living testament to what one person, guided by purpose and faith, can achieve. Her story concludes not in the end of life, but in the eternal echo of leadership, courage, and hope. To this day, when the world faces uncertainty, when fear looms large, Deborah's legacy whispers to us, stand strong. Lead with wisdom. Trust in your faith. Inspire others. The world needs your courage now more than ever. Her story reminds us that leaders are not born, they are defined by action. And that one courageous soul can illuminate the path for countless others, leaving a legacy that outlives time itself.